Hello. My video yesterday went rather long, and that happened because there was a lot of discussion on this book, "Kill It with Fire." And I've seen this. Readwise has a preference towards books that I've just recently read. So I finished "Kill It with Fire" recently, and there were a lot of highlights from that yesterday, and that actually entailed a lot of discussion. Let's see what happens today. Let's get started. First one is from Leader's Greatest Return. Character keeps everything secure. Without it, things can break down fast. Character is about managing your life well so you can lead others well. As Gail Beebe said, the formation of our character creates predictability to our leadership. Predictability, dependability, and consistency. These three qualities ensure that our leadership is reliable and motivates people to place their confidence in us. Our effectiveness as leaders is built on trust. This is a common theme you will see in a lot of leadership books, and it kind of tells us that leadership is not something that can be superficially demonstrated. It needs to come from within. There needs to be authenticity, there needs to be vulnerability. Only then you can get to the point of building trust, and that is the critical thing. Trust is the critical thing that drives leadership, that makes it effective. Without that, it's just like a superficial, the things, that the trope that we see in movies and TV shows, where you have that typical manager using all those cliched words to get something done. They are just bosses who are trying to manipulate somebody, but leaders, they are driven by heart. And this is another such perspective. Character, and it takes a lot of effort to build character. It's not something that you can just superficially demonstrate, or pretend. So yeah, it's another in the series of this theme of leadership being driven by heart, by character, by building trust. Moving on, kill it with fire. Nothing produces out of scope digressions more effectively than having people in meetings who don't need to be there. Okay, fairly straightforward. I think it's one of those kill it with fire quotes where I don't need to discuss a lot. So moving on, again, kill it with fire. Anything over 4 nines is basically a lie. The more nines you are trying to guarantee, the more risk averse engineering teams will become, and the more they will avoid necessary improvements. Remember, to get 5 nines or more, they have only seconds to respond to incidents. That's a lot of pressure. These nines are um, the SLA guarantees for availability or for reliability. So you might have seen this, that this service has 99.99% uptime. That is 4 nines, 99.99, 4 nines. Excuse me. So, for example, this highlight is saying that if you're trying to have 5 nines, that is 99.999%. That actually means that you only have few seconds in a year. In the whole year, you only have few seconds to respond to incidents. And it's I have this calculation somewhere. There's actually a website which will tell you that, okay, what does 99.99% mean? And let's see if I can dig that up quickly. Nines, 5 nines. I don't know how to search for that. Yeah. Okay. So 5 nines. It's commonly um, okay. I will. Okay. So 99.999% means downtime of 5.26 minutes. So in the whole year, you can only have downtime of 5.26 minutes. So if you want to have downtime of 5.26 minutes, you have to respond within seconds, which is useless. So 99.9% is a high enough standard. In the whole year, you have a downtime of 52 minutes, which is quite a lot. So it's not really worth it. And to get to that, you have to forget all the necessary improvements to the software. So the book is again making a point, like, rather than chasing these nines as a measure of your software quality, focus towards resilience, not these measures of reliability. Anyway, so let's move on. Getting things done. It never hurts to ask the why question. Almost anything you're currently doing can be enhanced and even galvanized by more scrutiny at this top level of focus. So the why question is, I'm actually kind of forgetting the this section of the book. But presumably the why question here refers to why you're doing something, as in digging into why do you need to do it in the first place. Is this an action that you should be taking anyway? That kind of a thing. So almost anything that you're currently doing can be enhanced. Like don't. Many people have this tendency that okay, no, forget the why, just get it done, and it's not that popular anymore. But yeah, like there it is. Moving on. Thanks for the feedback. In practice, we almost never do this. Instead, as receivers, we take up the relationship issues and let the original feedback drop. The highlight is talking about receivers to the feedback. We as receivers, when someone gives us feedback, we we attribute all the baggage of the relationship on the feedback. So, like let's say if a peer is giving us feedback, or let's take a more obvious example. If our manager is giving us feedback, and rather than looking at the feedback, assuming the feedback is, it's pointing towards some areas of improvement, instead of looking at that, we continuously point towards, okay, but what about you? What about you? You didn't do this to me. I asked you for this. You didn't do this. So we get into those kind of things like, everything that's driven by the relationship. You were supposed to do this for me, but you didn't. So that's why I didn't do this. Um, so all of those relationship issues get into the feedback, and we let the original feedback drop. It's very easy to do this. It's just human nature, because uh, the feedback is an attack on our identity, and we can't tolerate that. It's very difficult to let it go. The efforts that we have put, or whatever identity that we have built around our work or our output, and somebody is attacking that. Uh, like that's what our brains kick into in the first place. Rather than looking at, okay, oh, this feedback is going to help me to improve myself. That's not our first instinct. Our first instinct is, okay, I'm getting attacked for what I have done, and that's going to affect my identity, that's going to affect my social standing, and we kick into that defensive mode. So it's very easy, it's just human to get into that relationship issues, to find all the possible excuses to kind of justify that, okay, this feedback is not valid, this attack is not valid. Yeah. But what we should really do as receivers, the book makes this point again and again, is that as receivers, we have a responsibility to separate the feedback with all the other issues, the relationship issues, the us issues, the them issues. It's like, the book goes into a lot of detail related to that. We'll move on here. Kill it with fire. When you first take on legacy systems, you can't possibly understand it well enough to make big changes right away. As part of those pragmatic changes, we also invested a lot of time documenting and researching the system. Yeah, so the author is making a point that, when you first pick up a legacy system, the first thing you need to do is find out the context. And the book goes into a lot of depth about this as well. What kind of context are you going to uncover? Um, Original system requirements are there, and they may be documented, but there are a lot of things that miss getting documented. Things like the assumptions of that time. So whenever that system was built, there may be certain assumptions that, for example, platforms always work in a certain way. The infrastructure always works in a certain way. So there might be some assumptions related to infrastructure, related to the platform, related to developer tools, maybe related to programming language practices, which are kind of which are kind of a given the times. They may be kind of obvious at the time, and they may not get documented. So even when you're building it with today's infrastructure, with today's platforms, with today's tooling, you need to first discover what were the assumptions made, um, what was the context surrounding the system that let it run on infrastructure of that time, and so on. So yeah, you can't possibly understand, like the highlight is saying. Again, kill it with fire. Okay, this, I guess this episode is completely driven into, completely around kill it with fire. Conway's law has become a voodoo curse, something that people believe only in retrospect. Few engineers attribute the architecture successes to the structure of their organizations. But when a product is malformed, the explanation of Conway's law is easily accepted. Again, it's one of those lines, I said this yesterday also, that this book, it's slightly complicated to read. So even this sentence, it's, I think it is self-contained, but again, it's like we just have to unwrap it to understand it better. So the book is, in this section, the author is saying that um, Conway's law is always used to attribute when things go wrong, never when things go right. So if a software system is working well, if it's being built and maintained well, Conway's law is, it's never attributed to Conway's law. It's never attributed to how communication structures were built up, or deliberately or indeliberately. That the communication structure within the organization let enable building the software in a particular way. But like the LHS, few engineers attribute their architecture success to the structures of their organizations. But when a product is malformed, the explanation of Conway's law is easily accepted. So moving on, drive. Effort is one of the things that gives meaning to life. Effort means you care about something, that something is important to you, and you're willing to work for it. It would be an impoverished existence if you were not willing to value things and commit yourself to working towards them. I don't really think I can add anything to this. Pretty self-contained, I would say. Yeah, I'll move on. Again, kill it with fire. Okay, what is this, the fifth one? Software engineers are incentivized to forego tried and true approaches in favor of new frontiers. Left to their own devices, software engineers will proliferate tools, ignoring feature overlaps for the sake of that one thing tool X does better than tool Y that is relevant only in the specific situation. This is talking about the fads that go on in the technology world all the time, in software engineering world. Right now we see, for example, a new framework every other day, and there is this kind of um, interest, or there is this kind of drive within engineers that, okay, I should use the latest one over here. I don't want to use outdated technology. And we discussed this yesterday. There's nothing like outdated. I mean, there is outdated technology, but it's not as simple as, okay, outdated technology and it's never going to come back. That's not how it works. We see that technology growth is cyclical. The For example, if React is popular, if not if React is popular today, and even if it was going to be replaced by something else, the concepts are going to come back. And we see that happening, right? PHP, for example, it's like, for a long time it's been considered like a dead language, but it is still very vibrant. It's active, and not just that, but the languages that moved away from PHP's concepts, saying that, okay, those concepts are inferior, and these are superior concepts. For example, the JavaScript framework driven approaches and everything, they themselves are coming back towards models that PHP used in the first place, like static site rendering and all of that. That's basically what PHP does. So it's very easy to say that, okay, PHP is outdated. I'm never going to touch it. I'm never going to use it. Yeah, language design has its flaws, but that's a separate thing. Many languages have a lot of different flaws. So getting back to this subject, these kind of things happen. These kind of thought patterns and this kind of preferences build up because software engineers are incentivized to try new things. What is the latest JavaScript framework today? That's what engineers are driven to, rather than trying to build on something that's essentially been there for a long time. Boring technology, in other words. There is this whole movement around boring technology. So yeah, moving on. Kill it with fire again. Conway's law is a tendency, not a commandment. Large complex organizations can develop fluid and resilient communication pathways. It just requires the right leadership and the right tooling. Reorgs should be undertaken only in situations where an organization structure is completely and totally out of alignment with its implementation. So, it's saying that Conway's law doesn't happen because people make it happen. It happens because it's a tendency. It's how the world works. The communication structures of your organization are going to define how the software gets built. So, um, if for example, you're thinking that okay, you need to reorganize your software, refactor your software, reorg is a very very heavy tool for that. It's kind of like it's kind of like what's the word? It's kind of like a heavy explosive. So it should only be used in situations where an organization structure is completely out of touch with the with the software system that's being built. I guess that's pretty much it. Conway's law, of course, it's a deep area of study. And if you want to read more about that, there's another book, Team Topologies, which I prefer. The the takeaways from that book related to Conway's laws and how the organization should be structured to enable better software development. Team Topologies is an excellent resource for that. But for this, now I think we are done, and this is the supplemental highlight, which I'm going to skip as always. And that brings us towards the end of our highlights today. It's again slightly on the longer side. Uh, I guess what there were like 6 highlights from Kill It with Fire today. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.